Good evening. Welcome to SwamiLee's Sports Talk at SwamiLee's Sports Cards and Collectibles, 2673 Haddonfield Road in Pensacola, New Jersey. www.SwamiLeeCards.com. I'm Swami Lee.
I'm Mike.
And we're here. We're going to go right into our intro and talk about what we talked about last week. Why don't we do a quick review?
Okay, well, last week we did talk about the start of Major League Baseball free agency and what our Philadelphia Phillies should do this offseason. And we don't have much to recap because the Swami and I agreed, with one significant exception, that other than getting a bit piece here and a bit piece there, there is not much the Phillies need to do this offseason.
I would agree with that.
We do, however, agree about one Odubel Herrera. And sure, he's got some talent, but the best thing he has going for him is that he's the first Odubel in Major League history.
Yes, he is. The first Major Leaguer named Odubel, and that's value in itself.
The fact is, he lacks focus, he doesn't hustle, and while he put together some good numbers toward the end of last season, he is not the centerpiece to build a team around. He's not the centerpiece to build an outfield around. He's got enough talent and a small enough contract that you can get good value for him in a trade, with the proviso, of course, that Matt Klentak may not be the guy to get that value.
That's what my concerns are. So that was our main conversation last week. We're going to continually review what's happening on the hot stove over the next few weeks and months. But I think we should go right into the next topic, which, again, I have no knowledge of, so be aware of that. What do you got?
Well, why don't we talk, Lee? Why don't we talk about the collective bargaining agreement?
Oh, boy. A lawyer wants to talk about the collective bargaining agreement. Go figure. And what shall we talk about today?
Well, why don't we... We're gonna do a little Q&A.
Okay.
In order to help facilitate the discussion, I'm going to point out some aspects of the CBA that I may or may not have a strong opinion on, and we'll just let you get going.
Okay, talk to me.
Well,
what you got?
First and foremost, guaranteed contracts. What's that Albert Pujols contract doing for those California Angels these days?
First of all, this is 2 weeks in a row. They are the Los Angeles Angels, just to be clear. They haven't been California Angels in, I think, 10 years or more. But that's okay.
Next, you're probably going to insist that I call the Chargers the Los Angeles Chargers, too.
Not until the end of the world. They will always be the San Diego Chargers.
Okay.
Getting back to guaranteed contracts. Guaranteed contracts are the death of Major League Baseball. You lose out almost every time you give out a 5, 8, 10-year contract. Pujols, he's 31 years old. 10-year contract, $300 million. I mean, he's become a pedestrian first baseman. Would I want him on my team? Yes, I would. On a 1-year, $8 million contract. Okay, he still has, 5 years left? $150 million? Give or take a dollar or two? Look at these long-term contracts that just hamstring these teams. And then they start shuffling these guys from team to team. But the best one, the best contract...
Let me guess. Is it Bobby Bonilla?
It is not Bobby Bonilla. The best one was A-Rod. And why was the best one A-Rod? Do you know why A-Rod was the best one?
Does it involve his shenanigans during the 2004 World Series?
It does not. It involves the fact that the Yankees were the only team in the market for A-Rod. A-Rod opted out of his contract, his $20 zillion contract. The Yankees should have been throwing a party. Instead, they bid against themselves and overpaid him for another, 8 years, 10 years? It was unbelievable. I'd never seen anything quite like that before. They actually bid against themselves and gave him a raise, even though his numbers were not nearly the numbers that when they first gave him the contract.
And it was unlikely that he was going to be the player that he was in 2000, 2002, 2004.
Yeah, he's older. He's in his 30s. You're not going to produce in your 30s the way you do in your 20s.
Barry Bonds.
Yeah, Barry Bonds, whose head is like 5 times the size of what it was in the 80s. Okay? Hey, we all get older. We all put on weight. It's a fact of life. Well, most of us put on weight, especially me. But my head has not grown 8 times in size. I don't wear a size 14 hat when I wore a size 6.5 in the 80s.
Well, we're going to have a poll for our viewers next week to ask them whether a Swami head measuring segment should be performed each week.
Well, Swami is, I think, a 7 5/8. I think it is, if top of my head here, no pun intended. But let's get back to contracts for a minute. Let's talk about another I know I kind of taken a little off from where you're going, but that's okay. My favorite player. Anybody who knows me knows, was J.D. Drew. Excuse me. Again, he himself is a topic for another day, but he stole money from so many teams. The guy hit 100 RBIs one time. He was a very average player. He opted out of his contract with the Dodgers, and what did they do? The Red Sox overpaid him after the Dodgers overpaid him. On these guaranteed contracts, J.D. Drew barely even showed up for the team because he had a guaranteed contract. If there was a risk that he'd get cut if he didn't put any effort into his game, he might have put some effort into his game. So, that being said, you're never going to change it. And why aren't you going to change it?
Well, because of the union, of course.
That actually, it's a players' association. It is not a union. You, of all people, should know that it is not a union. It is a players' association. There is a difference because of your guy, Marvin Miller. Or, really, the reason for free agency, as we discussed last week, Charlie O'Finley. But, again, a topic for another time. So, guaranteed contracts, no go. They're always a loser. I don't want to see the Phillies give Jake Arrieta 6 years. I don't want to see any team give J.D. Martinez 8 years, $210 million. I mean, it's insane.
So you don't want to see the Phillies then trade for Giancarlo with his 9 years left on his contract then?
No, they're not going to anyway. As I said last week, he's going to the Giants or the Cardinals. I have no doubt in my mind. The Phillies could afford him, but you're just causing yourself heartbreak in the end. You pay the guy for the first 4 or 5 years, and then you overpay him for the next 5 or 6 years.
God forbid somebody blows out their Achilles. Well, that's it for that long-term contract.
That was only a 5-year contract. As bad as the contract turned out, the Ryan Howard contract was not nearly as bad as it looked.
But actually, it was an extension of an existing contract, so he was still under contract for 7 seasons.
True, and the Phillies thought they were getting the jumping the gun so Ryan Howard doesn't lose his free agency. But he was like 31 or so. He didn't have the kind of body that lasts for decades in Major League Baseball. But it was Ruben Amaro. Do you know what the best thing Ruben Amaro Jr. has ever done for Major League Baseball?
I shudder to ask, but...
Well, the answer is nothing. But if you ever watch the TV show The Goldbergs, they have a parody of Ruben Amaro Jr., and it's very funny. That is the only positive I can think of Ruben Amaro Jr. So what else you got for me on the collective bargaining agreement as we're using up our time here?
Well, let's talk about home field advantage in the World Series.
Oh, man.
We agree that the current system is ridiculous for so many different reasons. Having home field advantage turn on the result of the All-Star game, the one game of the year that's not played according to normal rules. So, how should home field advantage be awarded in the World Series?
The team with the best record in the World Series. In other words, if one team won 90 games, one team won 100 games, the team with 100 games should get the 2 home, 3 road, 2 home. Simple as that. They shouldn't be rotating like they did for years. When the same way you determine the first round of the playoffs, the second round of the playoffs, you should determine the World Series. It's just that simple.
Well, I can't argue with common sense.
Yeah, he'll argue with me all the time.
Which means, viewers, I'll let you draw your own conclusions.
Oh, boy. Anyway, we got time for one more question. What you got?
Okay, Swami. There's been talk periodically over the years, and this might be a touchy subject. Contraction. If you have to get rid of 2 major league teams, who are you getting rid of and why?
There's no need for contraction. I thought there was. Like a few years back, I was very much in favor of getting rid of the Twins and the Rays. If I had to contract, I mean, in other words,
Which you do.
I have no choice. I must contract. I'm getting rid of the Oakland A's because even though they have a great history, they're sharing a city with the Giants. The city is not cooperating whatsoever. Major League Baseball is not succeeding in the Oakland, or I think, are they in San Jose now even?
No.
Are they still in Alameda Coliseum?
Yes.
Oh, no wonder they're doing so poorly. That place is anyway. Two teams in the Bay Area, not necessary. I'm getting rid of the least successful of the two, which is the Oakland A's. Number two, I'm getting rid of the Tampa Bay Rays. There's no reason for baseball to be in Tampa. One Florida team is too many. I would get rid of the Marlins and the Rays, except we can't get rid of the Marlins because God's gift to Major League Baseball is now part owner. He put like $1 million into the $1 billion purchase. So, you can't get rid of Derek Jeter. The Lord himself will come down and spite me if I do that, or smite me, or whatever that term is. So we can't do that. So if I had to contract and I had no choice, although I don't feel contraction is necessary anymore, Tampa and Oakland. But I'd rather move one of those teams to Montreal, not because I think it'll be successful, but because they're going to do it eventually, one way or the other. Just my 2 cents.
Well, I think contraction would not be a bad idea, because if you look at the dilution of talent that we've seen over the past decades, as we've gone in our lifetimes from 24 teams and 26, and then added more in the 90s. There are pitchers, there are bench guys who, while they're a hell of a lot more athletic than the Swami, should not be in the major leagues.
That's saying something, but Well, my last thought on this is, please keep in mind, there's now so much talent coming in from out of the U.S. that it's taken up a lot of that space. In other words, this is not the talent pool that we had in 1976. This is a much wider talent pool. So on that note, we're going to break for our first commercial break for our sponsor. We'll be back to you shortly. SwamiLee's Sports Cars and Collectibles is located at 2673 Haddonfield Road in Pennsauken, New Jersey. We carry a wide array of sports cards, collectibles, singles, boxes, die-cast, bobbleheads, and so much more. On November 18th, we welcome Dickie Knowles, former Phillies 1980 World Series champion, signing free autographs and taking free photographs with our customers. We hope to see you soon. And we're back at SwamiLee's Sports Talk here at SwamiLee's Sports Cars and Collectibles, 2673 Haddonfield Road in Pennsauken, New Jersey. I'm Swami Lee.
I am Mike.
And we're going right into topic number 2. I will tell you, I do know what topic number 2 is about. So there's no, pretend here. Mike, tell them what we're talking about next.
Well, as young baseball fans growing up around Philadelphia, one of the highlights of our youth had to be the 1980 World Championship.
Oh, it was indeed my first championship, as I was not a hockey fan, so the Flyers winning when I was 5 years old didn't do anything for me.
Well, unfortunately, I really became a hockey fan in the fall in 1975, which was a few months after they won their second cup. So I have never seen the Flyers win a cup within memory, but I do remember that World Series in 1980.
As do I. That was the year that Marty Bystrom came up in September and went 5-0 with a 1.80 ERA, which helped the team win. Because remember, they didn't win the division until that last weekend in Montreal. That Mike Schmidt home run, I remember.
Yep.
Still didn't do any research, by the way. It's still all from memory. Just want to be clear about that. And on top of that, who started Game 1 of the World Series?
Was that whirlybird, Bob Walk?
Robert Vernon Walk, the rookie, started Game 1 of the World Series that year, which I was at, by the way. We sat in, my brother actually sold the tickets that we had for what was big bucks back then, I think $50 a piece. And then he bribed one of the doormen, and the three of us, my mother, my brother, and myself, got into the game and watched in standing room only seats. So I was there for Game 1 of the 1980 World Series. Now, Mike, why are we talking about the 1980 World Series today?
Well, this Saturday, November 18th, we're going to have a special visitor here at SwamiLee's.
That is correct. We're going to have World Series champion of the Philadelphia Phillies, Dickie Knowles. Knowles his rookie year was 1980. He played with Mike Schmidt. He played with Steve Carlton, Larry Boa, Pete Rose. So it'll be a great opportunity to get free autographs, have your picture taken with him. And what I think the most important thing, we're going to have a Q&A where you're going to be able to ask him questions about the 1980 Phillies World Series and anything else that strikes your fancy about baseball in general. If you want to know his thoughts on the designated hitter, he'll be sharing them with you. So what else you got on the 1980 World Series, Mike? What's your best memory aside from the actual win, which is obvious?
Well, let's see. There are a couple that come to mind. First and foremost, and this may seem ridiculous, but the Swami and I had a 6th grade teacher, Miss Kispolsky.
Yes, we did.
And she was young, she was cute, and she made us cake to celebrate the Phillies victory.
She did make us cake.
With white icing and red lettering.
I remember it like it was yesterday. It's funny, in conversation last night, I was talking to a classmate, and we were trying to remember what year we graduated from elementary school. And I told her it had to be 81 because Miss Kispolsky made us a cake in October of 1980. So I'm with you on that one. I remember that one clearly. What else you got?
Well,
I smell the wood burning, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
I mean,
oddly enough, I remember small things. Just like I remember Dobbs in 2008, I remember Greg Gross coming through in the clutch again and again in 1980.
Well, Greg Gross had that huge hit against Houston, did he not?
He did. One of them.
Greg Gross was if you guys are too young to remember Greg Gross, he was a pinch hitter for the Phillies for 10 years. And he was a good pinch hitter for almost all those 10 years. He came over in that big deal with the Cubs going to the 79 season that brought Manny Trio to the Phillies for a bunch of, they really gave up next to nothing. I mean, they lost, I think Derek Botelho was in that deal. Raise your hand if you remember Derek Botelho. Exactly. So, Greg Gross. Now, you see, what sticks out in my mind was the most obvious play from the entire series. It was the most amazing play, and if you've never seen it, you should find it probably on YouTube. It's Game 6. It's, I believe, the 9th inning. I think there's one out. The Royals are losing, but of course, we're Phillies fans. We assume the worst is going to happen. And one of the Royals hitters hits a pop-up to the first base side towards home plate. And Bob Boone, the not quite Hall of Fame catcher, but a really great catcher, a great guy. We loved him here in Philly. Gets up just like this. Yes, you see me with my athletic abilities to catch the ball.
With that big old catcher's mitt.
The ball hits his glove and bounces out of his glove. Now, any other time, any other player in Major League Baseball history, that ball hits the ground and the batter gets a chance to bat again. But there's only one player, love him or hate him, that would be there to catch that ball out of Bob Boone's glove with his bare hand. Mike, who was that player?
That was one Peter Edward Rose.
Love him or hate him, whether he did things with younger girls, whether he bet on baseball, whether he bet on horses, he was one of the best ball players ever. Okay.
And say what you will, he did a hell of a lot to finally bring our Phillies a world championship.
He didn't do a hell of a lot. He did it. They will tell you. I remember Mike Schmidt has commented that Pete Rose was the reason that team gelled the way it did and won the World Series. They were missing something all those years. 76, they finally made the playoffs. It was amazing. Got blown out in the League Championship Series.
But got blown out by a better team.
Of course. 77, same thing. 78, same thing. 79, they finally got rid of Danny Ozark. And went nowhere as the Pirates won the division. This is the team that added Pete Rose. This team was added Manny Trio. This team was supposed to win that year.
Yes.
And Pete Rose, by the way, batted .331 for the 79 Phillies. So it's not like he didn't come to the table with what it took to win.
And, Mike Schmidt hit 45 home runs that year.
But 1980 was when it all came together. 1980 was when Pete Rose, he only hit .281 that year. So he actually dropped 50 points in his batting average. But he was the spark they needed. He was the team leader they needed. And he was the guy that caught that ball out of Boone's glove. If he hadn't caught that ball out of Boone's glove, who knows what might have happened. I can tell you right now, we may not have seen Tug McGraw jumping in the air into Bob Boone's arms when striking out Willie Wilson.
Well, we never saw that because it was actually Mike Schmidt and Tug McGraw jumping together. But that's...
Wait a minute. Am I going to have to watch that again?
You are. It was
boy.
most definitely Schmitty and McGraw, and somewhere there's an interview where Schmidt said that they actually planned that leap.
Well, I beat somebody in bowling one time, and after I won in bowling, I did a lidge, just so I could kind of stuff it in his face. So I know what you mean. I had that planned. I knew I was going to win, so I planned the lidge.
Well, you know what I recommend? Why don't we ask Dickie about it on Saturday and see what he has to say?
I think that's an excellent idea. Just like you'll have the opportunity to ask him any questions you'd like while you're getting your free autographs, getting your picture taken with him for free, and when Mrs. Swami is serving you lunch. Yeah, you heard me. Free lunch also when you see Dickie Knowles, and stop by SwamiLee's Sports Cards and Collectibles in Pensacola, New Jersey this Saturday, the 18th of November, from 12 noon to 2 p.m. How about that?
That sounds great. Now, Swami, since we are Philadelphia sports fans, we wouldn't be keeping it real if we didn't talk about the negative. So, here we go. At some point during that 1980 season, 162 games, a whole lot of nail biting in the NLCS, a World Series where we started a rookie in the first game, an unproven rookie. Was there any point where you really, really had doubts? I don't mean doubts, I mean where you practically lost hope, where you thought, this is definitely not our year.
Well, first of all, Bob Walk won 11 games that year, so I wouldn't say he's totally unproven. That being said,
11 games with a 4+ ERA back in that era.
Well, he wasn't Randy Lurch 4-14, 5.02, I think it was that year. So.
Nor was he that ugly, but that also is.
Hey, leave the poor Blade alone. No, you know what? The time that I thought was over was in the LCS. What had to happen for them to come back and win the LCS was amazing. With down 2-1, I believe, and losing in Game 4, and Ryan was on the mound in Game 4, or was that Game 5?
Ryan started Game 5.
Okay, even then they were losing. But I was confident when the World Series got going. Obviously, I was 13 years old, and everybody said Royals in 6, so I said Royals in 6 also.
Of course, some of us, especially those who knew about George Brett's hemorrhoids, knew better.
If it wasn't for George Brett's hemorrhoids, who knows what might have happened. Poor George. You would have thought he'd get a Preparation H commercial out of that at least, but alas, he did not.
But he did get his ring a few years later.
He did indeed. George Brett, the only baseball player to win batting titles in 3 different decades. A little side note if anybody cares. But on that note, we need to take a break from our sponsors. We'll be back with you shortly on SwamiLee's Sports Talk. SwamiLee's Sports Cars and Collectibles is located at 2673 Haddonfield Road in Pensacola, New Jersey. We carry a wide array of sports cards, collectibles, singles, boxes, die-cast, bobbleheads, and so much more. On November 18th, we welcome Dickie Knowles, former Phillies 1980 World Series champion, signing free autographs and taking free photographs with our customers. We hope to see you soon. And we're back here for SwamiLee's Sports Talk, here at SwamiLee's Sports Cards and Collectibles, 2673 Haddonfield Road in Pensacola, New Jersey, SwamiLeeCards.com. This is the time in the show that we pick out an item from our shop and we talk about it. Quite simply, we each pick out a different item. And Mike, what do you have for us today?
Well, Lee, I have this Pittsburgh Pirate replica batting helmet. Fine gift for any young baseball fan. And I picked that in honor of my nephew Ezra, who is visiting from Pittsburgh next week for Thanksgiving. Since my sister moved her family to Pittsburgh, her kids have become Pirates fans, and that galls me just a little bit, but if it makes Ezra happy, then he gets a replica helmet. One thing I miss from my youth is the days when the Phillies and the Pirates were good and were relevant at the same time, and unfortunately that hasn't happened since around 1980. The Phillies had a great run from 2007 to 2011. The Pirates started to pick up steam after 20 pretty rotten years. So I'm hoping that by 2019, the Phils and the Pirates are relevant together, even though it won't be the same because someone realigned them out of the same division, but that's a topic for another day. Lee, what do you have for us?
Well, Mike, I picked out something new to the store. This is a Carson Wentz Funko Pop figure. Now, as an old guy, I look at this figure and I'm not quite sure I get it, but I know that the young folk out there love Funko Pop. It's a little square-headed or rectangular-headed guy. It actually looks like him if you really think about it. And it's so difficult to find Carson Wentz anything these days because of how he is, obviously. I've had the figures in stock, the McFarlanes, they sell like crazy. I had the Wentz wagon bobblehead, that's sold out. But I did get in a new shipment of the Funko Pops, and as I said, it's an interesting looking item. If you haven't seen them before, it's an interesting looking item, but I can tell you right now, they're extremely hot on the market today. So if you are looking for a Christmas present for anyone in the family, think Funko Pop. Now, let's move on to our next thing, Mike. We always discuss what we're wearing today, like we're a couple of women. Nothing against women, but we're going to start with you and tell me about what you're wearing.
Well, this afternoon as I went to my closet, I wanted to find something that was both sports-oriented and warm and clean. And for better or worse, this close to midnight green Eagle sweatshirt fits all three of those criteria. So I've got your Philadelphia Eagles sweatshirt. It is functional, it is comfortable, and it's certainly fitting that we pay some homage to the best team in the NFL. Lee, what do you have for us?
Well, Mike, today I'm trusting the process. This is my very old 76ers jersey. I'm sorry, sweatshirt, not jersey, not Jack Lamb or Jack Hambert either. I bought this at Modell's discount store in the big mall out in Philly for $3. So say what you want. I have had this thing for 20 years and it is still beautiful. See the rich colors. I'm very proud of the fact that I have a 20-year-old sweatshirt that still fits me. And again, this goes out to you, Mrs. Swami. Trust the process.
Well, let me just tell our viewers that before the season began, I said 32-50. Trust the prediction.
Well, we are winding down, so we're going to go over a couple things quickly and then bid you adieu. Mike, why don't you talk a little bit about what we were discussing today?
Well, today, Lee, we went back in time. We spent a lot of time talking about those 1980 World Series, one of whom, Dickie Knowles, will be joining us here at the shop on Saturday, November 18th.
Or December 18th, if you're really bored, maybe he'll want to come back. I mean, we hope he enjoys his time here that much. He'll want to join us again sometime.
We, talked about great memories of what was just a great season, culminating several years of victories and some pain along the way. We paid some homage to some greats of our childhoods: Mike Schmidt, Bob Boone,
Pete Rose. Of course. Greg Gross.
Well, of course.
Don't underestimate the importance of a utility outfielder. Excuse me. And don't forget, we also talked about Mike's favorite topic, labor in baseball, not in children.
We talked about the collective bargaining agreement and some things that are frankly bad for baseball.
And we could be going on for an hour on that and not even scratch the surface. So we'll see you next week. That'll be our Thanksgiving special show. Come up with two new topics that I'll know nothing about. And Mike will tell you I know nothing about it, but another story altogether. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. I'm Swami Lee.
I'm Mike, and we want to see you here at the shop Saturday, November 18th for Dickie Knowles.
And Dickie will be here from 12 to 2, and Pack Wars will follow from 2 o'clock until whenever. Have a great evening, guys.
Good night.